Hey guys, how's it going? Likebutter here, and oh boy, if you're a lover of the Dark Zone and the Division, this is a great video for you because there are a lot of changes coming in the up and coming patch known as Title Update 3 that are going to make the Dark Zone a lot better place. For those of you guys who don't know, I posted a Dark Zone video kind of giving my thoughts on the overall state of PvP and the Dark Zone. It was about over a week ago, I want to say, week and a half ago, and it received over 100,000 views. People really seem to agree with a lot of the things I had to say, and I do think if you haven't watched that video, you should definitely go watch that before this one. But it seems like a lot of the changes that they made are the exact things that I had suggested, and I am very happy. I am very surprised, honestly, that they took action so fast with some of these things. And overall, I think you guys that love the Dark Zone are going to really enjoy these changes. So we're going to talk about them. There was a state of the game today. I will put a link in the description to the state of the game if you want to go and watch through that and get the detail from them instead of me. But I'm going to kind of squeeze down the information a bit so it's not too much to take in. And I have a notepad here with a bunch of points that I want to talk about and kind of give my opinions on. So overall, the first thing that they're going to be changing is the normalization. And when I got the footage that you're watching here on screen, I noticed that the normalization feels a lot better because it doesn't feel like you're getting nuked way down when you have a min-max build. They actually respect your build a lot more, which is something that I really stressed a lot in my Dark Zone video when it comes to the normalization. So now you're going to be normalized up into World Tier 5 instead of you being pulled way down into somewhere in the middle. So you're gonna feel like you can, if you do a tank build, you're gonna feel tanky. If you do a DPS build, you're gonna feel like you're doing a lot of damage. It doesn't nerf down your stats to a point where it doesn't feel like your build anymore. It feels a lot better. And they are going to be respecting rolls a lot more as well. So that means rolls on your gear are going to be the rolls on your gear. So for example, if you have a really high crit chance roll, that high crit chance roll is going to be respected over someone who doesn't have a high crit chance roll. So, the reason of, making your build better is coming back, and I'm really excited for that. They also talked about a global PvP modifier that's going to be getting changed a little bit. The modifier is going from 70% down to 40%, which means what happened before is 70% of your damage would leak through against other players. That is getting dropped down to 40%. That is a pretty drastic change. That means to other players, you're going to be doing 30% less damage, which is a major change. So the time to kill, for those of the people that thought the time to kill was way too fast, the time to kill will definitely be going back up, and it's going to be interesting to see if with the changes to the normalization, if really high DPS builds are going to feel a lot stronger than something that's not high DPS. So it'll be interesting to see on the PTS kind of how much builds really matter now, because now that this is going to be good because not everyone is going to be doing insane DPS. Now you're going to have to really spec into DPS if you really want to feel that power spike and you want to be able to put down players incredibly fast. Now that the normalized stats aren't as aggressive, you're going to be feeling that difference in builds again, which is really good, and I think it's a huge step in the right direction. So many good changes coming with this update. Also, the skill modifier is getting changed from 20% to 25%, which means that it's going to be getting a little bit of a buff, so you're going to feel like, your turrets and your Seeker Mines, that kind of thing, are doing a little bit more damage, not much, but a little bit. And there's also adding an ODZ modifier, which there was not a modifier previously. So you're going to be able to do less damage to other players in the ODZ as well. This is going to slow the time to kill down really fast, which I did say in my video, and I think a lot of people agree. The occupied Dark Zone time to kill was way too fast, and I think now it's going to be a little bit more aligned with how the modifiers feel in the normalized dark zone. So it's kind of good. It's like it's a kind of pinching down the damage a bit, so it's not, you know, oh, you're there 1 second, the next second you're not. So that's a really good change. They're also going to be changing weapon archetypes that are weak in PvP separately from PvE. Now they talked about giving assault rifles a buff. This is weird. I never really felt like assault rifles were super weak in PvP. I don't know, like I think this is good that they can change things. So say, for example, rifles become really weak in PvP. They can separately tune that. Say SMGs in one patch end up becoming really weak in PvP. They can change that, and that's good because it doesn't change kind of the PvE balance. So PvE and PvP can be very separately balanced, and I think that's great. But I really didn't think that assault rifles needed a buff. Maybe there was some sort of statistics there that I haven't seen, or maybe people don't really know how to build assault rifles properly. But like, I can tell you right now that assault rifles with this, whatever type of buff they got, are going to be insane. It's probably going to be the meta now. It's probably going to go from the Vector to assault rifles. Now I think SMGs are going to be a little bit weaker because with the higher time to kill, you're not going to be able to kill people as fast. They also talked about hipfire. Terry said on stream that he does not like hipfire, and I understand that, although I do. I actually really enjoy hipfiring because I feel like it makes for some really interesting and crazy outplays. They're taking the crit chance off of hipfire, which is what they did in the Division 1. So if you go up in hipfire in PvP, you're going to have no crit chance whatsoever. So this won't affect assault rifles because up close assault rifles have no crit chance anyways. So most of the time when you're using assault rifles, you're not using a ton of crit chance or any at all. So if anything, this is going to make assault rifles even stronger. So you're starting to see like assault rifles are 100% going to be the meta, and I think people are going to have to test this out in the PTS to see are they a little bit too strong, and if they are a little too strong, I'm sure they'll get toned down. That's the beauty of a PTS. You can give your feedback, you can test it out, and you know I'll be streaming the PTS later today, for example. We'll be giving, a lot of feedback, and I love to hear what other people think and that kind of stuff. So PTS, don't forget, these changes are not finalized, so they can always change. Apparently the deflector drone also got a small nerf. I'm not sure how much of a nerf it is though, because we do have to remember that now that you're not getting your skill power normalized anymore. I think they tried doing this to make it easier to unlock skill mods, but for me, I don't know if it's for anyone else, but when it comes to the normalization in skill power is always so small that I don't think it's even going to make a difference to me. I still think that skill power needs a major rework. Like, it's just way too hard to get skill power. I have skill power on, I think I have 7 skill power rolls on my gear, and it feels incredibly difficult to get enough skill power to unlock the mods. So it seems like with this patch, people are still gonna have to get lower level mods to get mods on their gear. I think that this needs to be reworked, and I think it needs to be reworked ASAP. But now that number is going to be respected, for some people it may be better, but it also could make the defender or the deflector drone a little stronger as well. So they're definitely going to have to keep an eye on that, because with the higher time to kill, the deflector drone could even become more of an issue. So hopefully the time is reduced drastically on the deflector drone compared to what it was. So I haven't been able to test this yet, but that's what they said, and we'll have to see how that goes. Now that we talked about the small changes to normalization in the Dark Zone, there are major changes coming to the structure of the Dark Zone, which I want to talk about here. This is like the most important stuff that I was very, very thorough about in my video. So there are much higher amounts of contaminated loot. Now, when you kill a boss in the Dark Zone now, it is going to drop contaminated loot every single time. This means that there's going to be more loot flowing around in the Dark Zone. More people are going to have loot on them. There's going to be more reasons to kill other players to take their stuff. They also removed the rogue cooldown, which was the biggest thing for me, because this caused so many problems in the Dark Zone, because you would come out, you would have this long cooldown after death, and then you would come out of the Dark Zone checkpoint, and you had another huge cooldown where you had to wait. And if you had any teammates that were still alive from the last fight that you had, say 2 of you guys died and 2 of you guys stayed alive, the 2 people that died wouldn't be able to help the 2 people that are still alive, because the 2 people that died are on rogue cooldown, which means they can't sync up with their team again. Now what's going to be happening is when you get back to your team, you're going to instantly be synced up, and this is going to be cool. Like dude, the removal of the rogue cooldown is going to be insane, and it's going to change up gameplay so much. It's not going to feel as punishing as it was, and that's going to be a really, really huge change, and I think that's going to be really good for rogues and people who like to engage in PvP. Also, because of the huge increase in contaminated loot drops, you are going to be getting your bag increased. The base bag size is going to be increased to 6, and then you're going to be able to unlock 8 and 10 in your skill tree. So up to 10 slots in your bag. That is going to be absolutely amazing, and I think that's going to be really, really good. They also talked about the kind of emptiness the Dark Zone feels. They said that this was more due to a matchmaking problem than it was actually having 12 players be too little amounts of people. They said they're looking into ways in the future for even further helping this out, but they said they had way too many brackets, and the brackets that they had basically made it harder for you to be into full lobbies. So now you're going to be in full lobbies a lot more, so it should feel a lot more populated than it felt in the past. And they talked about how there's only going to be 2 major brackets now. You're going to have the 1 to 30 bracket, and then you're going to have the world tier 1 to 5 bracket. So this is going to allow for a lot more people in the DZ, and it's going to be a lot easier to run into other players. So I think this is the kind of the point where we have to see if we have full 12 server lobbies, does it still not feel like enough? Now, I still think in the future they should expand the dark zones and increase the player count to kind of give us that open world feel again. But that's obviously something that would have to change in the future. But I think this is really good because more players, and not only that, there's going to be more people that actually have incentive to go to the dark zone, because they're going to be increasing the gear drops in the DZ up to 515, which means there is nowhere else in the game that you can get gear drops above 500. So this is so good for the game. A lot of like PvE players that don't like the Dark Zone, don't want to partake in PvP, are going to hate this, but there's a reason this needs to exist. The reason this needs to exist is because there needs to be incentive to go to the Dark Zone. Whether you're a PvE player or a PvP player, it does not matter. There needs to be incentive to go there because it's a part of the game that you should want to experience, that. Now remember, the difference between 500 and 515 isn't a huge amount, which means if you really do not want to go into the dark zone, you can still min-max at 500 gear score and still be almost as strong as someone who's at 515. But for the people that want to chase that max number, who want to chase that little bit of power creep, you're gonna have to kind of suck it up, and you're gonna have to go into the dark zone. Even if you don't want a PvP, you need to go into the DZ and you need to play smart. You need to use pulse, you need to look at your map, you need to have awareness, and you need to stay away from rogues if you don't want to lose your gear. I'm telling you guys, the experience in the Dark Zone, even if you're not a huge PvP player, is phenomenal. And I know it can be kind of a hard place to get into because in the Division 1, there was a lot of toxicity involved. Most of that toxicity, although you'll still see it here and there, has been gone because of the fact that when someone toggles rogue, you can't hear them swearing at you or calling you names anymore. Also, don't forget VoIP. You can turn it off if that really bothers you a lot. But you'll see a lot of people in the Dark Zone are usually there just to farm. You have the 1 or 2 rogue groups sometimes that you find around, but for the most part, a lot of the time there's going to be people in there just farming and probably don't want to mess with you as much as you want to mess with them. So this will give you guys incentive to go to the Dark Zone, because remember, the Dark Zone isn't only PvP, it isn't only PvE, it's a PvPvE experience, and I think it's really important that everyone experiences that part of the game. And if you want that little tiny bit of power creep, you're going to have to kind of go to the Dark Zone, get your group together and get geared up and go in there, and good luck. So that's really good, and I think that's going to be a huge change to kind of give incentive to go to the DZ. They also lowered the XP loss in the ODZ, so when you die, you're not going to lose as much, so that's really good as well. And the ODZ is going to be receiving a rogue system in the future. Now, this isn't with this update, I believe he said, but this is huge because that's one of the main things I wanted to see in the Occupied Dark Zone was the rogue system, because the rogue system was such a staple of the division, and it was just what made the manhunts and all that felt so unique and awesome that you had the whole server hunting you. So they're going to be working in the future to try to get a rogue system into the ODZ, but it's definitely not going to be this update from what they said, but they're going to be trying as much as they can to get that into the Occupied Dark Zone. And I'm hoping that they also have like a lot of rewards above the normalized Dark Zone. So let people go for insane amounts of manhunt status, like levels, you know what I mean? Like give like 30 levels of manhunt status that you can go up to, and give like a special patch for those people that go on 30 kill manhunts and survive it. It would really give incentive to for people to go into the ODZ and try their luck and see if they can really go on those huge manhunt runs. And I think that would be really cool. Also, landmarks got a small change in the ODZ where the cooldown is going to be a little bit longer, so you can't just farm the same landmark over and over. The cooldown's about 1 minute, they said. AI damage and armor changes. This is a big one because AI did way too much damage in the Dark Zone, because if you were engaging another player and the AI, whoever like the AI flanked first and decided to focus, was usually getting killed. So now with the better survivability, the AI damage is getting nerfed, which is really, really good because it's not going to feel like the AI is just lasering you in half a second. And they're also increasing the armor of the AI as well. So the AI are going to feel a little bit tankier, but they're going to do less damage. And I think that's a good middle ground because now if you want to go through and you want to clear AI, you can do that. But they're going to be doing less damage, so you're going to have more survivability. So it's going to take a little longer to clear AI out of areas, but they're also lowering the amount of NPCs in the Dark Zone as well. So that's really good, and I'm really excited for these changes. And the AI damage reduction is so good, because what it's going to do is it's going to allow it to take a little bit less percentage of the fight when it comes to two players or two groups engaging in conflict. So that's really, really good, and I'm really excited for that as well. They also said there's small changes coming to conflict, like team spawns and boosts are getting reduced by 50%. I'm really not huge into conflict. I'm more into the Dark Zone, so for me, this isn't a huge change. But for those of you guys who like conflict, there are some quality of life changes coming to conflict. Also, exotics are getting a buff in PvP, which they said this is their first iteration of ever separately balancing PvP and PvE items. So they said they're looking at a way to make exotics a little bit stronger in PvP, to have them be at least an option. And there are a lot of talent changes. A lot of people are really upset with this, but the reason they're doing these talent changes, guys, are because things like Berserk are absolutely busted. There's no way a talent like Berserk should be in the game. There's no way, whether it's PvP or PvE. This isn't because it's strong in PvP. It's completely broken in PvE. The fact that when you have no armor, you're doing 100% more damage. A lot of these really, really meta talents are getting toned down. So I think instead of it being 10% for every 10% armor, it's going to be 10% for every, or I think it's 5% for every 10% armor. So instead of going up to 100% extra damage, you're only going to be going up to 50% extra damage. And then they're also toning that down in PvP even a little bit more. The idea of this is because you don't, especially in PvP, you don't want talents like single talents on gear, like completely swaying a fight one direction or the other. Because then you get these metas where it's 100% necessary to have this specific talent, and that kills build diversity. So they're also bringing up a lot of unused talents as well. For example, Spotter got increased from 10% to 20%. So when you pulse, the pulse enemies are going to take 20% extra damage. I'm going to be running that, dude. That is going to be insane. I can't wait. I love using pulse, and it's going to be nice to get that little bit of damage with pulse again. So remember, guys, the nerfs that they're making to these talents aren't meant to make you feel weaker. They're meant to kind of bring them in a line with everything else, so that once they're balanced, if you still feel like you're not doing enough damage to the NPCs, they can bring the NPCs down and bring in alignment with all, you know, where the gear is. So I'm really excited for this. I can't wait to hop on the PTS and try it all out. I think these changes are absolutely phenomenal for the overall health of the game, and I'm really excited for the future. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and I will talk to you guys